Welcome, Delvers, to Session 3C of the Vaults Remastered. Today, in this episode, I'm going to be talking about the third part of a series of videos I've made about the Luminite Lattice. They are a cult, a group of mortals who are worshiping a titanic crystalline elemental entity known as Kvarca, the Radiant Sovereign, the Unblemished Lord, the ruler of Prismar, and the ward of the Luminar Nexus. In today's episode, Price of Perfection, the politics of the Luminite Lattice. We're going to take a look at this cult and its connections to the game world, the greater Vaults game world, my homebrew world, and what do people think about them? Who's afraid of them? Who's working with them? Who are their allies? Who are their enemies? How can your players interact with a cult such as this? And then through this example, hopefully this will give you all some ideas about if you're going to make cults in your own game world. What are some of the things you should consider placing into your cult's structure? So, hey, where am I getting these ideas from? What's going on? I talked about this in the last couple episodes. I'm using Pathfinder Second Edition's organization rules. Not really rules, but they're guidelines, which was in the Lost Omens character guide. I'm also relying upon Kobold Press's Demon Cults and Secret Societies resource book, which you see an excerpt from here. And then, of course, I have my own, what I call a template, a organization template. You can see my bulleted list over here. And so I take these ideas, these resources, and I grab my mythology, my religion that I've crafted already for Kvarca and his followers. The Luminous Faith is the religion, and I take all this information and all these guidelines, and I feed it into my muse, ChatGPT, who I refer to as Kathy, Chatty Kathy, and I get her help organizing all this information into a coherent, hopefully unified, creation, a cult. So here we go, creating a cult, part three. We're going to take a look at politics. We're going to look at the visibility, the allies, and the rivals. And again, if you take a look at Cobalt Press, they have this sort of thing, not super fleshed out, but they do have some cool stuff in there about, for instance, how you can create plot hooks from cults. And so they have this level by level breakdown. So you can see how that would tie into allies, rivals, and politics. Also, they have examples of magic items and rituals and things like that that the cults would undergo. So again, I'm relying upon this as some inspiration for my own design of my own cult, this Luminite Lattice, as I go. So let's take a look at the politics that I've come up with the assistance of ChatGPT. So here we go. First thing is perception. What do people out in the world that you've created? In my case, it's the Vaults. The Vaults is my homebrew subterranean game world that I'm remastering from 5th edition D&D over to Pathfinder 2nd edition remastered rules. And I'm asking this question: how visible is this cult to the public? Uh, are there members? Rituals, are they known? Are they secret? What's their standing in the society? Are they accepted, rejected, revered, reviled? What's going on in the bigger game world? Because maybe one of your PCs is a member of the cult. Maybe your PCs are dealing with NPCs that are members of the cult. Maybe the cult is up to no good and you're being hired to go take care of business somehow. Whatever, you need to know how this cult integrates into your game world. So outside of Prismar, which is their home realm of Kvarca, their lord, the Lattice maintains secrecy, right? They a shroud of secrecy. They don't walk around all flashy and glowing like they normally do in Prismar, which is their massive geode vault realm that they live in, all sparkling and gems and jewels and crystals everywhere. Illuminated, brilliant, like inner sun, if you will, which is the name of the Luminar Nexus, the adjoining realm. But outside of that, they're much more on the DL. But to those that are aware of them, depending on who you are, you could be seen, they could be, inspired. Oh, like, ooh, that's one of those Luminite Lattice. They've got powers of light. and brilliance. I've heard that they're all perfect at whatever they're perfect at. Or if you're more of a shadowy, dark dweller, you would see these people as suspicious. They're coming and they're trying to bring light and illumination. It might be seen as a form of gentrification, perhaps, in some of these places. And they're not wanted. Get out of here. They also are going to use their light as a symbol and tool. Their use will challenge the status quo, the shadowy darkness of many of the vaults, and so it's going to create a lot of unease amongst a lot of people. And the average, Joe or Jane in a cave or tunnel that if they were to come across and be all brilliant and lit up. And some people actually see them as divine, like celestial. That's the only, there be ancient stories of, angels and that sort of thing, celestial beings of light. So a lot of people might see them as members of that, or perhaps offspring of that. But again, a lot of people would fear them. They're a disruption, right? They're trying to, you know, they're probably drawing a lot of people to them for this cult of perfection. So there might be a lot of, classical, earth cult type of attitudes where, hey, my brother joined a cult, we haven't seen him in 3 years or whatever. It could be things like that where people are being drawn and it's not seen as a good thing. All right, then next, allies. Within my game world, some of this you're going to need to revisit or visit some of my older videos. So I talk about some of these, factions and such. Plus, I'm going to introduce a couple new things today, and then as well, this is also going to be spoiler alert where I'm going to be going next with some of my videos. So, allies, what people, factions, groups, ancestries within Pathfinder, parlance, are alliances built with this cult? Who can the Luminite Lattice call upon for help? Who would they go out of their way, perhaps, in order to help? So, one of the easiest things is they would definitely be collaborating with any sort of artisan guilds that are out there, because those types of creators, and not necessarily inventors, but people that are good at creating artistic works, especially if it's based around stones and gems and minerals and perhaps metals, this would be seen as by the cult as furthering the goals of Kvarca, which is to become more perfect, more beautiful, more radiant, more light. So they would definitely associate with groups like that. And they would also be willing to trade or have commerce with groups like that because they can get materials they can use in their own rituals and such that they perhaps don't have the skill to make. They would also have a lot of connections with arcane scholars who are coming to them for information about their crystal magic, their crystal powers and the mastery that they seem to exhibit, and they themselves would be seeking learned folks in order to help them better craft magical crystals and stones and things. So there would definitely be a two-way street there. And then the last three are ancestries that exist within my game world, and a couple of these are going to be remastered versions I'm working on for some of my 5e original content. I'm converting it over to Pathfinder content, and because Pathfinder does not have any official Darklands second edition creations, a lot of my ancestries are going to need to be homebrewed in order to fit my game world as I transition between the game systems. So the first group is known as the Ganeshiho. Those would be my Pathfinder version of the Svirfniblin or the Deep Gnomes. So in my 5e game, they were just Svirfniblin, but as I convert them over, they're going to have a newer look, a newer pizzazz. And actually, this art here is an example of one of the Ganeshiho who are just like the sort of like the surface gnomes in Pathfinder. They want to be colorful, they want to be lively. How would that translate as you move to the Darklands area? So the Ganeshiho are definitely going to be drawn to this cult, and the cult's probably going to draw recruit heavily from them because many of these deep gnomes are really good crafters, tinkerers, especially with just minerals and mining experience. So they would definitely be sought after by the cult or seek the cult out. Then the Facet Worm Seed. This is my Dragonborn, my Gemstone Dragonborn. The Facet Worm Seed would definitely be seen as, again, allies are attracted to the cult or by the cult because of this, their innate connection with gems. The Gemstone Dragons, which I call Leviathans in my game world, were ubiquitous, I should say, in this Darklands within the vaults. They have, for the most part, disappeared for reasons. No spoilers on that one, but their offspring, these dragon spawn, these worm seed, are prevalent. They are the remnants of their once vast kingdom beneath the surface. So they would be definitely seen as valuable, like-minded, or at least shared connection with just gems. And then the Oread, or these are a Pathfinder already existing species. These would be like your Earth Genasi in D&D terms. But the Oread is a group that I've lifted from Pathfinder 2E. I actually have them as their own group. They're not Geniekin, and they're like a heritage of Geniekin. The Oread are their own unique ancestry, and within that ancestry, they have several heritages, depending on what sort of uh, stone, crystal, metal, whatever bloodline that they come from. So that's kind of the cool thing with the homebrew options, is that you don't have to use the book and be locked into. For instance, with the gnomes, there was like the umbral gnome was the only option for a Svirfnil, and it just wasn't good enough. So I'm not using the stock, rare ancestry for these options here. I'm making my own brand new ones. I already have them in the 5th edition version. I'm just converting them over to Pathfinder. So those will be, spoiler, later videos that I'm going to be getting into. The Ganeshiho are actually next on my list. I'm finishing those up, so I hopefully will be able to record some of that and present it to you guys. All right, and then the last part here is for the cult design is rivalries. What group or organizations or ancestries would be antithesis, nemesis, or just not like these Luminite Lattice? And again, you're going to see some groups that are, I may have mentioned in a couple of previous videos. You're also going to see some ancestries that I've either mentioned already, or you may recognize them as Pathfinder creations as it is. So rivalries, who are they competing with? Who's trying to stop them? Who would see the Luminite Lattice as enemies, or vice versa? And if there is some sort of conflict, is it open or is it covert? So we've got the Order of Eternal Shadows. This is a faction that I'm creating that is going to venerate a shadowy primordial. Again, another spoiler. This is an upcoming video. I'm going to be creating multiple primordials within the game world, and each primordial is going to have factions, cults, and certain species or ancestries that are affiliated with them. So anyway, the Order of Eternal Shadows. These guys would be the polar opposite, I suppose, of the Luminite Lattice. They venerate the darkness, and they're committed to keeping the vaults shrouded in darkness, and they are actively opposing the Lattice's spread of this luminescence and the light everywhere. They, not that they're ignorant and don't want that illumination, the intellectual illumination, but just the shining crystals and that representation, that physical representation of illumination being actual light. They are not down with that at all, and will actively be looking to snuff out the influence of the lattice. Then there's another group within, I believe these guys would be existing within Prismar itself, and that is the Median Assembly. These guys would be advocating for just simplicity and normalcy. Why does everybody have to be perfect? Why does everything need to be perfect? They just want status quo, normal. Can I just be average? Why do I got to keep being better, 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 right? So they're like, no, they are resisting to this push for exceptionalism and perfection by the lattice. I don't see it as an overt hostile, but they're just, maybe some secret backroom meetings. Hey, what can we do to kind of sabotage that ceremony that's coming up? Let's just be normal, because they would probably have a lot of their kids, for instance, being drawn to the lattice and taken from the normal, house or the normal farm or whatever, and drawn to this cult. So they would not be okay with that idea. And then the last three are getting into ancestries again. The Kalini, I believe, is how you would pronounce it. These guys would be like the dark folk, the darklings of the game world. So this is a Pathfinder name, and there's some cool Pathfinder ancestry information that comes from this, which I borrowed from in my own version of this group. But in D&D terms, I think it was the dark stalkers, the dark creepers, the dark folk, or the darklings, I believe was one of their names. But anyway, the Kalini, they in the game world, and probably this is in any version of fantasy RPG that you're using this dark folk, they are violently allergic to light. So guess what? They hate the Luminite Lattice's presence with all their gleaming, glowing stuff. They will catch fire, literally burn. So they are trying to check that influence completely. They would definitely be associated with the Order of Eternal Shadows for sure. Then the Droog, these are my recast, my remaster of the Durgar. Again, the Durgar 5e version of things. I'm converting stuff over to Pathfinder. Pathfinder does not yet have any official Darklands, releases of Ancestries. So you're kind of stuck with, cave elves or whatever else instead of the drow. So the Droog are my version of Dorgar, or these gray dwarves, and these in my game world are aligned or were aligned with the Black Earth cult, which was a cult dedicated towards Ogremok, the stone tyrant, a primordial of Earth. That's also a 5e creation, which I'll be remastering that as I work more on this project here. But anyway, a lot of these Dorgar were aligned with the Black Earth cult, and so they would view the Luminite Lattice as their flamboyant practices, all this shininess. Durgar or the Droog, by just their very nature, are pretty bland, pretty just, building things like any dwarf. They're going to be, master craftsmen and such, but they're not crafting things for fancy show, jewels and gems and glittery things. No, it's got to be practical. So they're very practical minded. So they would see these flamboyant, gem shiny, practices as frivolous and perhaps even blasphemous if they're actual true believers of Ogremok and the Black Earth cult. The Black Earth cult, just spoiler alert, they have kind of been broken at the culmination, the end of my last campaign. So as my 5e game ended, and again, if you haven't seen my older videos where I was talking about remastering your 5e game world, I discussed this already. One of the major events in my game world has broken the Black Earth cult's, iron grip over most of the people, the residents of the city of Pedestal, which is in one of the upper vaults. And so, they're not anywhere near as powerful as they were. But those who are still true believers would definitely see these guys as blasphemous, the Luminite Lattice, because there's only one primordial, in their opinion, and that is Ogremok. All the others were too weak. Anyway, then the last two groups, the Darakul, I mentioned those already in my previous video in this little mini series here about the cult. And they are a race of, I think I got that picture of them. Yeah. So here's a Darakul from Kobold Press's Ghoul Imperium. They have a whole, realm similar to the Darklands, similar to Underdark and D&D. So Cobalt Press in their Midgard, game world, they've got an Underdark, a Darklands, a subterranean realm. I don't remember exactly what it's called, but anyway, they got this idea of the Ghoul Imperium, a ghoul nation of half undead people that eat flesh, and they are called Darakul. So the Darakul, as well as the Mycoloids. The Mycoloids are my Myconids. They're fungaloids, I think is what they're known in Pathfinder. But anyway, these Mycoloids, the Darakul, both of these groups are shadow-dwelling, dark-loving creatures. They're obligated to darkness, and so similar to the Kalini, they don't like the light. They don't like the Luminite Lattice's use of light with rituals, whatever else, and they see it as a threat to the natural order. Like the Darakul see themselves as part of the natural order. They're consuming, dead meat, dead flesh. They're part of the ecosystem. The Mycoloids, similarly, they are recycling, right? They're decomposing things. And so they see the Luminite Lattice, who is preserving and making, making better perfection as alien, as wrong. No, you have a blemish, you are sick, you are dying. That's the natural order of things. There's no such thing as perfecting things and making them better. Okay? If you were imperfect and we're gonna die, well then you should die, and then we'll eat you or we'll decompose you. So they would definitely see Luminite Lattice activities as wrong, just evil, perhaps from their perspective. All right, so again, similar to my last couple of vids, rather than me telling you all this information, let's go ahead and talk to a member of the Luminite Lattice. Let's see if we can get some more information about the politics from their insider perspective. Let's go ahead and make our diplomacy check with our mysterious cultist who has been assisting us in the entire journey through Kvarca's realm, religion, practices, and now the cult, the Luminite Lattice. Be right back.
Politics. That is a landscape as complex and multifaceted as the gems we cherish. To the untrained eye, the Luminite Lattice is but a whisper of light in the deep, a rumor of radiance. Yet to those with vision clear as quartz, we are a force of change, a crucible of enlightenment in the vault's perpetual dusk. Our presence, it is as deliberate as the cut of a diamond. To the dwellers of the vaults, we are enigmatic, our motives as obscured as the inner fire of an opal. Some see our light as a beacon of hope, a herald of ascension. Others, cloaked in the comfort of darkness, regard us with suspicion and fear. We walk a path of duality, revered by those who seek enlightenment and misunderstood by those who shun our luminous cause. Allies, you ask. We align with those who share our reverence for the arcane brilliance of the mineral kingdom. Artisans who craft with a vision as clear as ours, scholars seeking the lost light of ancient lore, the Oread, Wormseed, and the Nishiho, whose affinity for gems mirrors our own. These alliances are the bedrock upon which our influence stands, a coalition bound by shared respect for the power of Kvarca's domain. Rivalries, however. In our pursuit of light, we invariably cast shadows. The order of eternal shadows lurks in our periphery, ever opposing our spread of illumination. The median assembly, those content with the mediocrity of dimness, resist our call to perfection. And let us not forget the Kalini, Droog, Derakul, and Myceloids, beings who find our radiance incompatible with their existence. Each rivalry is a testament to our impact, a reflection of our potency. We do not fear these conflicts. We are shaped by them, as a gemstone is shaped by the jeweler's wheel. Our resilience is unquestioned, our resolve unshaken. So you see, esteemed inquirer, the politics of the Luminite Lattice are as intricate and enduring as the crystals we hold dear. Whether revered or reviled, we remain steadfast in our mission, our light undimmed by the politics of the vaults. Should you wish to stand with us to be part of our grand design, that choice is yours to make.
All right, excellent. So there you go. That is insider's information about the politics, the relationships that the Luminite Lattice has with the greater Vaults community. So that's going to end this little mini series about Kvarca's cult, the Luminite Lattice, but it's going to springboard us over into some ancestry building and design. And so for next session, we're going to meet this guide who has been assisting us in our understanding of Kvarca and his will, as well as the vaults themselves. And through him, we're going to get some insights not just into Kvarca, but into his ancestry. So, next session, we're going to meet our guide, our speaker. Who is he? What is he about? We're also going to take a look at his ancestry that is compatible with the Darklands setting. Or at least I hope. All right, hey, if you're into that and you want to see more, go ahead and like and subscribe so you know when the next session is going to be posted. Go ahead and leave some comments if you're curious as to who this may be or what they may be. And beyond that, hopefully this was some some useful information, I guess. And I appreciate you taking your time today and watching the vid and checking out what I had to say. Have a good day and good luck with your own designs.